It's so interesting that you mentioned the return on ad spend as a very unique metric that a lot of marketers in the space or people who are getting into e-commerce have been looking at. And I've gone on record, disputing that, saying that, I don't think this is the right thing to be looking at as a metric. It's just one of them, but it shouldn't be the main one.
Yeah.
What's your advice to brands? What's your advice to brands as far as them getting into this space, especially when it comes to this key metric?
Maybe I could share what we are doing at Global. We don't look at ROAS as a main thing. We look at what we call lifetime value versus the CAC ratio. So we look at how much money did you spend to acquire one customer, for example, if it's 10 euros, and how much money do you expect to make from this customer in the next 1 or 2 years. So we have a ratio that we meet. The lifetime value has to be minimum 3 times CAC. So for example, if you're acquiring a customer at 10 euros, then the lifetime value of this customer should be 30, for example. So how do we do that? Actually, we are able to calculate the lifetime value CAC ratio at a channel level. So I'm able to tell you that Facebook, for example, the LTV CAC ratio is X. So I would put more money in the channel that gives me the highest ratio, because at the end of the day, it's about how much money can I make from this customer, given that I've spent this much to acquire them. So that's our main metric. And just to give you the formula we use, we look at lifetime value as a function of average monthly order and returning customer, which we call a MORU internally, and also a function of retention, and also a function of AOV, how much money, or rather, what's the average order value. So we look at those, and then we also look at what we call probability of churn. So if the country is more than 1 year, we are able to calculate or estimate what the probability of that customer churning is, and then we also apply that to the formula, and we're able to estimate how much money I can make from this particular customer. So thank God, because we are 1 year old now, so we have a lot of data to do predictive analytics, and we're able to look at it even from a channel perspective. So for example, right now, mobile is our biggest, has the highest CAC ratio. So it means that I can make more money from customers who come through the mobile advertising that we are currently running. Just to give you an example.
Josh?
Yeah, so I'll defer to Priscilla on this one because she's more of a career marketer, but I would say that definitely from my perspective, like I would say one of the big learnings we saw in 2020 was, I think when ROAS is used and, you're looking at, okay, what is your break-even point and what do you go through, just looking at just the dollars spent and maybe COGS. When you have, if your business has a hugely operational side, like for example, we do, like in manufacturing, your COGS are not really going to capture the bulk of your costs. So in the way you start figuring out how to calculate what a good ROAS is, that's a bit of a challenge. And I think when people are looking at your LTV CAC ratios and all these other things, there's quite a bit of work that needs to go into. And I think like from our side, we began doing a lot of work in terms of figuring out as e-commerce begins to become more a driver of revenue. If you're going to use ROAS as a metric, then you really can't just use traditional and say, okay, 2 and 3, 1. You have to really think about what a good ROAS is that actually helps you drive your company towards green on a consistent basis. But I think as it stands, I feel that if most of your costs, if you're, like for a technology business that might have most of its costs maybe in the building of a system and sales, a lot of COGS can be captured within the core of the production. But when there's different things going in, it's very difficult sometimes to attribute direct costs. So I think that's one of the things that I would say that is definitely something we highlighted and had to review.
Yeah, so also just to reinforce, rather to even demonstrate how we use the LTV CAC ratio. Actually, that's how I, when I was head of marketing, I would look at the countries that have the highest ratio, and I would put more money in those countries. So, for example, if I had, even if Morocco was a big country and Cote d'Ivoire has a high CAC ratio, I'll probably put a bit more money. Not a lot of money compared to Morocco, but in terms of trying to make sure I maximize the spend there before I allocate more money in Morocco, because LTV CAC, it means that I get better returns by investing in a country like Cote d'Ivoire, for example. So during my time, actually Cote d'Ivoire had the highest LTV CAC ratio, and then followed by Morocco, then Kenya. Kenya is also, given the fact that we have a bit of more competition compared to the other two markets, Jumia, Uber Eats, etc. For example, there's no Uber Eats in Cote d'Ivoire, etc. So you will find that if you have more competition, customers have more options. So the chances of them going to other apps is higher. So your LTV goes down when there's more competition, basically. So yeah, it was one of the metrics I used to use. But at the same time, the more competition you have, the more you need to spend to beat competition. So it used to be like trying to figure out what the balance is. Yeah, but yeah, it's a very interesting metric to look at.
Very,